Hello and welcome to the Construction Record Podcast. I'm digital media editor Warren Frey. I recently attended the Vancouver Regional Construction Association's Construction Leadership Forum in Whistler, BC. This is the first time the conference has been in person since the start of the pandemic, and I covered several sessions on topics ranging from substance use to retrofits and reconciliation. I've included two interviews from the conference in this episode. The first is with Vancouver Island Construction Association CEO Rory Kulmala and Harm Reduction Coordinator Greg Hemminger. Their session explained VICA's Tailgate Toolkit program, which helps those in the industry address substance use and keep workers safe. And Greg speaks to his own personal journey and the importance of addressing BC's toxic drug supply.
I'm Rory Kulmala, CEO of the Vancouver Island Construction Association.
I'm Greg Hemminger. I'm the Harm Reduction Project Coordinator for the Lower Mainland.
And we're here at the VRCA Construction Leadership Forum, and we were talking about you were talking about the Tailgate Toolkit. So maybe you could tell me what that is, first of all, maybe familiarize people who don't know what it is.
The Tailgate Toolkit is a project that we initiated a year ago to really introduce our workers in our sector to the crisis that is we've kind of wrapped up in this opioid overdose crisis that we rather call a toxic drug supply, and how it's affecting our workers. So the Toolkit Talk is just a way that we can introduce this issue to our workers, reduce stigma, try and help workers find the resources they need to ultimately for recovery and better health.
And Greg, you went into specifics during the talk. So maybe you could go into some of the specifics you went into.
Oh, well, I have lived experience, unfortunately, or fortunately. I think I'm better for having gone through it. I'm 5 years clean and sober. I have previously worked in the addictions and mental health field. So that's my lived experience.
And one thing you both stressed is that we got to stop calling it overdose because it's actually toxic drug supply.
Absolutely.
So maybe you can go in, and you actually explain overdose makes you immediately think that person took too many drugs.
Absolutely.
Which is a radical oversimplification of what the problem
Absolutely.
is. So maybe both you could explain what the problem is.
I think people have death wish when they think death wish. They think copious amounts of drugs in this overindulgent lifestyle, and that's simply not the case. We're dealing with a toxic drug supply, and people are making small mistakes. These are recreational drug users, sometimes first-time drug users, and they're getting one drug, or think they're getting one drug, and they're getting fentanyl, and they're dying. And no one should die for a mistake in time, whether they're young, old, or in between. The goalposts have moved, so we need to approach this from a different perspective. It's not just easy enough to do the just say no mantra. We need to be smarter. We need to look at aspects of harm reduction.
And Rory, you mentioned that there are aspects of the industry which get these buildings built also sort of feed into the not taking care of the problem aspect of it.
Well, when we have 24% of the deaths come from construction or the trades or the transportation sector, that conveys to me that we have a problem that we can't ignore. And as I talk about when we're presenting about this, we spend a lot of effort on harm reduction on the job site, PPE, fall protection, first aid. That's all great when you're on a job site, but 69% of the people who die, they're dying alone. They're dying in their own homes. It's happening outside of the job sites. So as I've articulated before, we spend a lot of time introducing harm reduction strategies, fall protection, all these things on a job site so they can go home safe at the end of the day. We want them to go back to work safe the next day and not going and it just having this erosion of their wellness, their health, and making it worse.
And one of the problems was this is its own problem, but it's a male-dominated industry.
Absolutely.
But on top of that, there are male attitudes that just add to the problem.
Well, our demographics are clear. It's basically 90% men. The age bracket is 19 to 54. That is our age bracket. Like, we are playing in the same demographic pool. Construction's not as simple. It can be stressful, long hours. Certainly we touch about pain and how that impacts somebody's work capability. People want to earn a living, and they're going to do what they have to do to continue to provide for their families or themselves. And that's what makes our industry particularly susceptible versus perhaps less physically demanding jobs.
Absolutely. And if you look at the statistics, people in our industry are almost 3 times more likely to be casualties than the next closest industry. So that's eye-opening. And it's not that it's a construction problem. This is a societal problem. But a lot of the properties of this problem, males predominantly is 80% of deaths. Predominantly men in the industry. Physical pain is a major trigger for this. People treating pain. We all know, the oxycodone, the Percocet, fentanyl. All this really started with Purdue Pharma, and we know that story. But it is unique to the construction industry because it shares so many properties with the epidemic as a whole.
And you also touched on how toxic attitudes, particularly male attitudes,
absolutely
toughing it out and that sort of thing. Too.
Absolutely. I mean, as men, we are graded on how little we complain. We celebrate toughness, not talking about our problems, not talking about our fears, our vulnerabilities, and we need to change those attitudes because people are dying alone, right? They're suffering in silence. They think there's something wrong with them. They think there's going to be punitive measures against them if they come out and say, hey, I'm not doing too well and I'm struggling and now I'm dependent upon a pain medication. So we need to change the attitude. We need to start a discourse between employee and employer. We need to normalize this and realize this is a human problem. This is a societal problem. We're all at risk because we're losing too many people.
And part of that is the Tailgate Toolkit, and you sort of elucidated during the presentation what the components are. Like there's a general meeting component.
There's the toolkit talk. There's the actual outreach to the workers. There's the supervisor training. It's important that the companies understand that they have a part in this. They have a part to help people, but we've never given them training with regards to this specific issue. We have the resources. When we have local resources, I talk about, we start regionally. What's available in those communities that we're giving the talk, rather than saying somebody in Fort St. John has to go to Vancouver. It doesn't help the addict. So we want to create, opportunities, and we publish this. And this is the research that our harm reduction coordinators do, is they say, what's in my community?
Absolutely.
And that's their job. They know who's there. They know how to get to them. They know how to say, if you need help, call this agency.
I mentioned it on the stage today. Every person in addiction has 10 minutes every day, it said, where they know they have a problem and they are ready to act on it, right? So how can we create a logistical kind of synergy where we can act when people know, okay, now's the time, right? Because once you have that acceptance, it's a whole nother thing, putting that acceptance of I have a problem into action and getting to the solution. And that's what we're trying to do, is expedite that process and make it readily available to them so they can get help today when they need it.
Okay.
And then the final component was our hammer time. It's that support group. And again, it's not a 12-step program. It's not a faith-based discussion. It is just a group that's facilitated by someone with lived experience that has, and in our case, that person does have experience in our sector, so they know of which they talk. They say, I can understand what it means to be on a job site for 10 hours a day working a shovel. Right? I know what that means and why my body feels the way it does. So that's an important thing that we've opened up to the province. It's virtual, so it allows for private access, and in some cases it can be unanimous access. And so we couple those 4 things together. That creates our program. We've had excellent support by other industry advocates and associations and partners to try and deliver this so that we can get in front of as many workers as we possibly can.
Okay, and finally, if they want to find out more about Tailgate Toolkit, there is a website, so you can say what that is.
Yep, they can go through our website, and it's the Tailgate Toolkit Project.ca.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Up next, we have an interview with RDH Building Science Principal, Construction Specialist, and British Columbia Institute of Technology Instructor James Bourget. He's one of the participants on a panel about the increasing importance of retrofits in combating climate change. Bourget is passionate but practical as he looks for ways for the industry to respond to the climate crisis.
My name is James Bourget, and I'm a principal at RDH Building Science, and I've been there for, a long time. And I'm also a part-time instructor at BCIT, and I've been there for 9 years. And I'm driven by a passion for education. There's nothing I like better to see that light in someone's eyes when they actually figured it out and actually can implement it one time well. You know, today I presented at the VRCA and just talked at a high level about retrofits and making buildings better. That's what RDH is, and that's what we do. We just make buildings better. And I shared that I toured around and looked at a job site today. And what I saw from workmanship was disturbing, even from an energy step code perspective, air tightness, but the skills of the trades was extremely poor. Mm-hmm. Membranes are falling off the wall. It's completely disorganized, and there's that level of pride is not there. And I like to educate and promote that pride. And I've worked with some that said, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'll show them some tricks or I'll show them a different way, and they realize, well, this is really great. I said, yeah. And I says, can we do it this way? I said, of course you can. And this happens on some of my own projects where I'll do a review during a mock-up, and the trade may install, for example, a window membrane, and it's not ideal, and they're having a challenging time. And if I show them a simpler way, based on my background, which is construction, how to do the same thing, there's a tremendous buy-in. So promoting that buy-in and that pride within trades is amazing. I work also, I help builders with their builds, and say, for example, you're doing a rough-in in a basement and you have all your stubbies coming in, and you need to establish a plane of air tightness with the polyethylene and the concrete, and we use a rubber gasket, and all this stuff is stuff we do at BCIT. And I go to site and I talk with the mechanical trade, and I show them how this gasket goes on, and it's super simple. I have the builder pre-make the gaskets for the trades, and all of a sudden everybody's starting to pull the rope in the same direction, and it becomes really powerful. So that's the part about education, and that's why I keep doing it. Does it keep me busy? Yeah, sometimes too busy. Sometimes I feel I'm getting old. But at RDH, we've been making buildings better, which is our trademark, for a long time. And so it becomes quite a challenging process and a very involved process to actually get a group of owners on board to even do a simple building envelope renewal based on needs. We have an envelope that's age-tired, causing issues, water ingress. Sometimes it has to go all the way to life safety before they'll actually engage in the work. Well, that's because it costs money. And so, if each unit has to pay $60, $70, $80, $100,000 on their envelope, it starts to get concerning. And I think, well, if I wore a hat and somebody knocked on my door and said, excuse me, I need $100K for the building, I'm probably going to be nervous. I probably want to be really sure that I have to do it. And as we move forward now with carbon reduction, greenhouse gas reductions, and energy requirements, okay, there becomes a need that we need to do this work. We're going to get building labeling, so you'll get an Energad sticker for your building. That's going to have resale issues, but none of this is going to happen if we do not get properly directed incentives, okay, and get the policymakers on the same page, okay, where one side's working on energy and one side's working on greenhouse gas emissions. We need to work on both, okay?
Now, in the session, you seem to be both optimistic and realistic, because you said we're not going to hit our targets, but here's ways we can get to this.
No, we're not going to hit our targets, okay? The IPCC looks at, tons of studies and provides scenarios to look at, and, global warming's real. I mean, is somebody stealing the polar caps? No, they're melting, okay? It's real, okay? The temperature of the oceans are rising. Right now, they're absorbing the heat, but at some point, that's going to go sideways. And what happens if we get to 1.5 degrees? Look what's happening at 1.1 degrees above baseline. Like last June, I mean, I just found it tremendously horrific. 595 people died directly due to heat-related deaths. And you die at home? You're home? Many did, and I just don't find that acceptable. What I do find realistic, okay, is a marriage between, renewable natural gas, electrification, but from an envelope-first approach. We need to reduce the demand, okay, and then and in conjunction the greenhouse gas, not just plug all the buildings in and keep the high demand, okay? It's the wrong thing. So I'm confident it'll come around, and it's like I say, the industry's a ship, okay? And we're all sailors on this ship. And I'm telling you right now, there's going to be some turbulent weather coming up. But if we turn the bow to the wave and we plow right through this retrofit wave, we'll come out to the clear sky on the other side. But we need to stop fooling around, okay? And get serious about our targets and realistic.
And somebody actually pointed out, and you refuted it in the session, that they said, well, China and India are the ones creating most of this, and honestly so is the United States. But you pointed two things out. One, the United States is way ahead of the curve when it comes to improving what they're doing. And two, we should go down swinging regardless.
Well, yeah, and I believe that. I mean, just because somebody's a bad person doesn't mean you need to be a bad person. I mean, seriously, we live on a planet, we're killing it, okay? And yeah, we might be a small country, and you know, our impact will be little. But it's funny you mentioned. I'm working at BCIT. We just RDH and BCIT just finished developing curriculum for net zero homes in Korea. Okay, so it's around the world. Okay, it's coming. Okay, and others will come on board. It might take some pressure. Maybe they won't even come on board. Who knows? But at least if we all try, we're going to buy as much time as we can to hopefully make it better. What, are we just going to throw in the towel? Not in my watch.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's it for this week's episode of the Construction Record Podcast. Next Wednesday, I'll have an interview from the Construction Leadership Forum with Rise Consulting founder Annie Corver, who spoke to attendees about how the construction industry can engage with and move forward the truth and reconciliation process with Canada's Indigenous peoples. If you'd like to hear other episodes of the Construction Record Podcast, you can listen to us on Apple Music, Spotify, and Amazon Music, or on the Daily Commercial News or Journal of Commerce websites. Thanks for listening.